today, Ed OBannon won his lawsuit against the NCAA. What does it mean for the future of college sports? And if I'm watching this and I played, say, for Cal 5 years ago, am I entitled to monetary damages?
You're entitled to monetary damages if one of the covered categories was something that you did. This has to do with names use, likeness use, image use. So it would be something like what caused the suit in the first place, which is the use of Ed OBannon's visage on a EA game. Now, they didn't put Ed OBannon's name on the player, but they designed a look that was Ed OBannon, and clearly, it was his number, it was Ed OBannon. So what this suit claims is that that's a taking, that it's
like a taking without just compensation in real estate terms, right?
Yes, exactly. That's a taking.
I almost went to law school.
And it's a restraint on trade, and it's violating the rights. Now, first of all, the case will be appealed. Second of all, we don't know ultimately what system will evolve around this. There's some talk in this of having a limit of $5,000. So we for a long time had a very hazy delineation between college and pro sports. If you're going to try to claim that Texas A&M playing in a 109-seat stadium with 100 luxury boxes, the most expensive costing $15 million and the least expensive costing $1 million, and the raising of $450 million is somehow amateurism or different from the pros, I don't really see the distinction. You now have these conferences out building, in the case of Texas or BYU, their own TV network, or in some cases a conference television network. So all of this is erosion of the pristine concept of amateurism. Let's remember that many of the players who are sitting on college campuses are not there because they have a huge academic drive. They're there as a way station to get to the pros, because in basketball they need to spend a year there, and in football 3 years there. So what system they'll set up is not clear coming out of this case. The point is there needs to be a new system in terms of what we call group licensing, which is names and likenesses. So there's going to have to be a new system set up, and I think we'll see that evolve. Now, the NCAA has taken a double shotgun hit in the last couple of days, and we may be seeing the beginning of the end of the NCAA and collegiate athletics as we know it, because yesterday they ruled that 5 conferences had the ability to go ahead and create their own legislation, meaning make their own rules. So these 5 super conferences with 65 schools are in essence removing themselves from the same set of playing rules. What will this mean? Well, it means, for example, they can do an attendance clause where players at those schools, I think, get an extra $5,000. It means that partial guarantees on scholarships, which is what most players have, meaning that every year a campus football program, basketball program can decide they don't want the player anymore and simply take them off scholarship. Now all of a sudden you have guaranteed scholarships. When you start to treat players this way, it's going to lead to bidding wars for the top high school talent. And you may have Alabama against SC, and they're each upping the ante in terms of what the player will get. One of the things to think about here is that it will create, and some people argue it already exists, these 5 super conferences, which will be playing especially football and basketball at their own level. Now, Zenny, the reality is that the majority of even Division I schools don't make money from the athletic program. However, Texas makes money from football, and Ohio State, Michigan, they all make a lot of money from football. So if the second tier of schools make a decision to try to compete in football and basketball, part of the problem is it may lead to the evisceration of all sorts of lower revenue sports. So they'll get them, there's a finite amount of money, they'll get the money by knocking out wrestling or softball. And I don't know what the Title IX implications are of this, because it will allow them to decide that a football player, male football player gets X, male basketball player gets Y, and then where does that leave the women? There may be a threat there. So we're seeing a brand new day. The NCAA was slow in reacting to mega stadiums with luxury boxes and signage and naming rights at the collegiate level, with all sorts of revenue coming from them. They were slow in dealing with the fact that individual schools, which we saw the way back with Notre Dame, have their own ability to be marketed, and there's a higher level. So here the differentials, it really is going to echo in some ways what's happening in the economy, where you've got a tiny group of haves and then a whole lot of have-nots. You also need to ask this: if the mission of a university is to provide the largest amounts of quality learning experiences to its students, and if you define participation in sport as one of those experiences, will this force a lot of schools to drop out of the big-time football or basketball basis and concentrate on a broader program that allows much larger numbers of players to play?
I have to ask, do you think that will be the case for, say, the University of California, Berkeley, our school, Cal? Because right now Cal is considering the future of its athletic program as we speak. Do you think this will impact what Cal decides to do?
Well, one of the schools, the conferences, is the Pac-12, and so they now have the right to do the same rules changes as the other 64 schools. It puts, Cal has not had a winning program. There is more revenue there when they start to win. I have some confidence in Sonny Dykes rebuilding that program. I think he's going to be ultimately great, and they've got a hot young quarterback. The minute they start to win, you'll have more demand for tickets, sell the stadium out, you can enhance the rights, it leads to much more alumni giving. So the relationship between winning and revenue is pretty direct. But I think you'll get a push on a number of campuses from professors who will say, well, what's the purpose of this academic institution? But this is where the 118-year-old concept of amateurism with the NCAA is running up against reality.
Yeah. One second. Okay. I have to ask also, would we be here without digital media? Because arguably digital media created the climate by which OBannon could say, hey, that's my likeness, what's going on here? And then I think about players like Russell White, for example, at Cal, who was in a similar situation prior to OBannon. Your thoughts?
I think there's a heightened awareness among players in terms of marketing, in terms of value. I think that social media and social revenue media revenue is a huge source now. It's being exploited in a whole variety of ways. So the most expensive program to run is obviously a college football program. Now you have to outfit 85 players, you have to house and feed them, you have to fly them, you have a large number of coaches and all the rest. That's expensive. I mean, basketball has more like 12 players. So it's football that's the most expensive sport. But we're in a football frenzy in this country. By 2-1, reader polls indicate that the NFL is the most popular sport, which is a switch from when I was growing up and it was baseball. And moreover, you have college football as a number 2 sport. So in terms of what the fans want to see and will pay for, it's football. But football by far is the most expensive sport to maintain. And now that there'll be a leap, it's a much more, it's going to widen the distinction between have-not schools.
The court at the end of the document, because I kind of speed read the 99-page decision, it said that the court would issue a separate ruling regarding remedy. Does that mean they're going to come back and say, okay, boom, this is $1 billion that the NCAA owes? And if that's the case, will it effectively kill the NCAA?
Yes. So the question is, who took that revenue?
Yeah.
And so the question is, did they make those deals with the NCAA? Did they make it with member schools? Was that money diverted in some way? So that really is the question. Hang on one second. So what happens? So what happens is that now they've decided there's liability, and now they move to the issue of damages or remedies, and we'll see how far they go back in terms of compensating past athletes, where they get the money pool from, and what changes this makes in terms of going forward. There are going to be a number of changes in terms of how players are compensated for programs that involve them for commercial use.
It's got to open up a question I didn't think of. Is Troy going to call you and say, hey, I need some help recovering some money from UCLA?
I'm not sure how far this case will go back. It's been going for a long time. And but kudos to OBannon for standing up for his rights.
So shifting gears, how are things progressing? You've got your client with the Rams actually playing right now as we speak.
Playing tonight.
Yeah, and I was watching the Rams game, so I'm going to let you go so we can go back.
We'll be in the second half.
Okay. But give us an update on all things Leigh Steinberg and what you're burning on.
Well, things are good. As I've told you before, we have 3 separate verticals, as it were. One is the representation of athletes, and we got a late start last year, but we're recruiting now for next year's 2015 draft. So we'll eventually build out in each and every sport that is interesting. So it'll be baseball after that and basketball and the rest. What you want to do is represent high-profile superstars. They tend to get the majority of the compensation and attention. Then we've got marketing, which is marketing teams, leagues, any high-profile person, and corporations. And then the content supply, which is sports-themed motion pictures, which we can be consultants for, which we can own a piece of, sports-related motion pictures, television, which would be reality shows or competition or dramatically scripted, all the apps that bring one closer to a fan experience. So it can be Wi-Fi in a stadium, it can be desk site where you can watch 30 hours of high-def NFL highlights on your computer from your favorite team. It's how can the platforms of content supply be used. And then working on concussion, where I'm helping with a new helmet technology that attenuates the energy waves through a coil and compression system to reduce the hit by 50%, and then nutraceuticals. That's easy for you to say. Nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals that can prevent the. They can either prophylactically protect the hit the brain less apt to be hit in the first place, or secondly, devices on the sidelines that can detect a lower level hit. And then once the hit, to keep players out of return to play, and then once the lower hit is taken, a lower level concussive hit, be able to spot that and keep the players from returning to play. And then ultimately, can we heal the brain? And then we're working on the Sporting Green Alliance. I'm writing for Rant and Forbes.com, and they get picked up in Yahoo. We just announced a new radio show for Yahoo Sports that'll start on August 18th.
Congratulations.
It'll be 2 hours on Monday night. I've got a very vigorous naming contest going on right now on Facebook. We do a weekly podcast on USA, and so it's a busy slate.
Leigh, thanks for your time. I know you're busy. I'm going to let you get back to your clients.
Okay.
And thanks a lot.
Thanks, Lenny. Take it easy.